Mr. Odell, tell me what year did you go to Vietnam?
July of 1965. About the middle of the month. I don't quite remember the dates. I think it's around about the middle of the month. So
When did you come back?
I came back in that same said year around October, 1st of November, something along
Around October, November '65.
that. That's true.
How old were you?
At that time, I was 25 years old.
Seems like a while ago, huh?
It was quite a while ago. Oh, how time flies.
What rank were you?
I was Buck Sergeant. That's Sergeant E5, they call it.
That's what my husband is now. Where'd you do your basic at?
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Where'd you do AIT at?
Fort Devens, Massachusetts.
They send you to Vietnam training? Where'd you do that at? Did they send you to specialized Vietnam training?
Yeah, Fort Benning, Georgia. We received some at Fort Devens too, but I got most of it at Fort Devens too.
What unit were you with?
Well, when I went over to Vietnam,
Yeah.
I was with the First Cavalry when I was over there.
What was your MOS?
111.
Is that what you stayed?
Light weapons infantry.
And you stayed that?
Beg pardon?
Is that what you stayed during the entire time? You didn't change MOSs, did you?
No. MOS didn't change.
Where did y'all land when you got to Vietnam?
We land in what they call it, Air Force Base. Latrine, I believe it's Latrine Air Force Base. What we landed? Latrine, out near the ocean out there. That's what we landed.
Is that where your home base was?
No, we eventually went to Onkay up in Central Highland. That was really
Okay.
that was the train was just out jumping off point.
Okay. So you did one tour?
One tour. That was enough.
Wasn't volunteering for any more, were you?
I was drafted for that one day.
Okay. What was your first impression when you landed in Vietnam?
Vietnam, it was better than I thought. I expected to get off the plane, gun blazing and all that stuff. In fact, it was just a hopping off point where you had a lot of supplies and stuff and like that, and quiet, and there's a little village all around there. You could go there if you want to. I didn't care much for that because I wasn't that familiar with the area. You know what I mean? But it wasn't anything like I expected it to be when I first went there, but wasn't any place, still wasn't any place I really wanted to be.
What do you remember most about your first day or two when you were there?
Well, the first day or two, what I remember most was that we found out that the country was a lot different from our own health-wise. And we only had about half of the shots we need to immunizations, and we spent the first 2 or 3 days getting those extra shots, and we didn't have barracks to live in and stuff like that, so we dig in foxholes and stuff and place sleeping in the sand and all that kind of stuff. But that's what I remember most about that. We getting shots and setting up. We only had pup tents, pup tents. We didn't have big tents or anything like that. Sleeping on the ground, I was accustomed to that. That was no problem. But that was it, and naturally you got all kind of instruction as to what you can expect and what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and all that kind of stuff like that. And that was all good information. But wasn't a whole lot going on the first when we first went there.
When did it change?
It changed when we went to Cape Central Highland. It changed. We was there. We were supporting. We first went there. We was stationed around the air base, the landing strip, air base landing strip. And the purpose of that was when it bring in supplies and troops, we protected it. And again, you didn't have barracks and all that stuff. You didn't have the big tent and you didn't have tents at all. In fact, you had the big, what we call foxholes, and we had to live in those for about a week, about 2 weeks. We did that, about 2 weeks. And at night, well, you have to understand the area. You live in you got flat land, you got foothills, and you got hilly land. Well, Central Highland means what it says is high, but you do get a few flats every once in a while. So we were essentially located in the flat area so we could get the landing strip. But up on the hill, that's a good place for the enemy to kind of shoot at you at night. There wasn't much danger, and I guess it wasn't much danger that way away, but those traces make you uncomfortable. So that changed a little bit. And we run into another outfit up there, and they had some stories to tell us too, One of them, 2nd Airborne outfit, I believe what it was we run into. And they hadn't run into a whole lot, but they had run into a lot of crazy stuff they told us they run into. They give us some idea what you could expect and all that. So that's more like orientation too. Guarding the base wasn't much to that, but we got there in what we call the monsoon season, which means it rained every day. It didn't rain, it flooded. It rained buckets every day, and you constantly trying to bring in water out of your foxholes and all that kind of stuff. And a little miserable, but we expected that. We knew about the monsoon season. We knew about the hot weather before we went there, so all that we expected. But the insects on the ground, they didn't tell us they didn't tell us all about those.
So when was your first encounter with the VCs?
Well, that was the first encounter when they're shooting at us at night like that. But I guess the real first encounter with the VC when we went to a place we called the Idrain Valley, which it was affectionately called Happy Valley. The 7th Cavalry had been in there, you may have read about them in this book about this. They had been in there, and they had this battle with the VC, and we had to go in there and kind of reserve, so they could come out, and there you would constantly run into scrimmages and stuff like that. So, but I can't say you get used to it, but you have to learn to live with it.
When you first had your first personal encounter with the VCs, what did you think?
Well, the first personal encounter, it more or less we captured some people that was tired of fighting. That's my first encounter. They knew we was in the area, so they gave up. And my first opinion was the difference between them and the indigenous people that we was around, and that was which was supposed to be our allies. They seemed to be because they was military, I guess they seemed to be better fed and more robust. It's about the same height, but more robust and stuff like that. And you could see somewhat a difference, but not a whole lot. They seem to be more like they're more well nourished than the other ones we saw. So that was my first opinion about that. And I'm looking for stuff like that, because you're running among people, and you can't tell one. You literally can't tell one from another. I'm looking for signs that I can tell them might be different, that thing. And when we captured those, I noticed that they seemed to be more well nourished. We run into a lot of time people a little malnutrition every once in a while, and a lot of different kind of diseases and things they ran into, deformity and stuff like that. The soldiers were a healthy like, and you didn't see any of that among them when we camped.
How did you feel about them, about the women and children over there?
Women and children. I looked at them where we were. See, we were in South Vietnam. We never went north because of the parallel. We were not to go along there. In my mind, I kept trying to tell myself that the women and children was our airline. I knew better, in some cases, but I kept trying to tell them that. And of course, I guess seemed like it was a general consensus that we had sympathy for them because of the conditions they had been forced to live in. Their livelihood didn't seem to be the greatest in the first place, and then you put a war-torn country with that, it seemed to be even worse. But I admired the way they made adjustments. If artillery was coming in now, they's running all over the place. 10 minutes later, they was acting like nothing ever happened. They go back to normal routine. I admired that. And I was fascinated with the mud huts with the grass huts and all that stuff. How well designed they were, and how organized they was in building a village. You could go up on the mountain and look back, and all the houses was right in line. It looked picture perfect and everything. You couldn't see that if you're in the village, but you look down on it, you would see that. And which means they took some pain in what they do in putting stuff together. I kind of admired that too. The people's making the best of the situation they was in. Kind of reminded me of the background I came up from. You had to do the same thing, you know what I'm trying to say. So those are the things that I would notice the most. And you sometimes coming in contact with the enemy don't mean you saw him. You didn't always see him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. What was your thoughts overall about Vietnam and about serving, having been drafted? What was your thoughts?
Having been drafted, well, my family I have a military family history. They all went to the service. And my grandfather and my father didn't go because he had a big family, but the members that did go, they always instilled in us that it's everybody's responsibility to serve in the military. Otherwise, somebody else, if you don't serve in the military, somebody else will take over your country. And then you don't know what it's going to be like when they do it. So you best, if you don't defend it, you can't expect anybody else to do it for you. So when I was growing up, I expected that I was going to have to go to the military one day. I grew up with that expectation. Wasn't necessarily the case, but I grew up with that expectation that one day I was going to go to the military. Seemed like I was growing up with a concept about every 10 years we had a war, so it's going to hit everybody sooner or later. That's not the case either, but that's what I grew up with. So I expected to go to and I felt that it was my duty to do so. I never had any